Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you might be joining us today. My name is Meg Alexander. I am, as always, honored, excited, and oh my gosh, y'all, so geeked for today's chat. I'm going to host, obviously, today's chat and learn. We're going to be talking about the weight of expectations, a Gainsight discussion on mental well-being at work. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I am incredibly excited for any discussion that talks about our mental health. So I'm really excited to open up today's conversation. But before we do, I just want to say a quick hello and welcome to anybody who might just now be joining us and give you a little bit of a primer on what to expect from a Power to Fly event. And like I said, if this is your first event, this information will be particularly helpful. And if that's the case for you, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers. I absolutely adore seeing your familiar names and faces and avatars in the chat. So thank you all so much for joining, whether today is your first event or your 50th. Now, regardless of how many punch cards or punches you have in your Power to Fly punch card, you are absolutely welcome to participate here in a couple different ways if you'd like. You're always welcome to turn your cameras on if you'd like to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. But there is no need to be Instagram perfect, y'all. Just because I got really fancy and actually washed and dried my hair today does not mean that you can't show up with your messy buns from your living room couches or your kitchen table. We do not care, all right? We're not here to stand on ceremony. I don't care if you are in a three-piece suit or your bathrobe. You are welcome, and we're just elated to have you here joining us today. Oh, awesome, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. Makes me feel much less alone on this stage, so thank you for that. Francois, thank you so much. All right, so as we go through today's event, like I said, if you want to participate with your camera, awesome. Not a requirement, but I always encourage it. You can also participate in a couple different ways, but the big thing to know is about today's event is we are recording. We're also live streaming to YouTube. Hi, YouTube. And what that means for all of you that are in the room today is you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with Seth and Revs, and not worry if you missed a resource that was listed or a podcast someone shared. You don't have to worry about all that. So what's going to happen is in about 4 to 5 business days, Power to Fly is going to email everybody that registered for today's session. So whether you showed up or not, doesn't matter. Everybody's going to get an email from us with a link to where you can rewatch today's recording. Now, that's awesome, and I really encourage you to check that out. You can head over to our YouTube channel to see it on there as well. But the one thing that I want to highlight for you is, like I said, 4 to 5 business days, okay? So let's say that Seth or Rev shares something today so mind-blowing, paradigm-shifting, that you can't wait 4 to 5 business days before you share it with a friend or a coworker or a relative. You don't have to. You can head over to our YouTube channel. We're streaming there right now, and the video usually goes live by the end of business today. Now, there is a segment on there, a bunch of our kind of best of, greatest hits chats are stored in a couple playlists on that YouTube channel, so I very much recommend you check it out. But truly, if you want to see the full mother load, all of our warehouse of resources, it's all available on powertofly.com. Now, we are also live streaming to the website. Hi, thank you for joining us. So we really appreciate y'all joining us no matter where you're watching us today. But please feel free to participate. Like I said, if you have questions, we want to hear them. Now, we aren't going to be able to let our audience members come off mute today. Unfortunately, we are limited in that, but we would absolutely love to hear from you. So if you want to share your thoughts, if you've got questions, please feel free to throw those into the chat feature within Zoom. I've got eyes on there as well. And then my buddy Ria is in the comments sharing links for everything as we go. So if y'all would like to jump on into the group chat there, I would really encourage it. As we're going in there, please feel free to let us know where you're joining us from. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So if you know whose land you're on, we'd love if you'd share with us today. Oh, last thing I wanted to do is a quick descriptor, so visual descriptor. My name is Meg. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a 38-year-old white woman. I have pink and blue and purple hair and blue glasses and a black shirt on. Oh man, we've got people coming in from, let's see, Latavia is from New York. We've got Jessica from Boise, NorCal, Montreal. Oh, somebody else in Ohio. Awesome. Muncie, Indiana. Oh, love it down there. Barrie, Ontario. Oh, thank you all so much for chiming in. Ooh, Chicago as well, and Pueblo, Colorado. Thank you all for joining. All right, now like I said, if you got questions, please feel free to let us know. You're welcome to share them. If you have questions that you want to be want asked, but you want them to be asked anonymously, no worries. Just DM me whatever you'd like. I'm happy to raise your question or comment and keep you anonymous. Now, the last thing I want to talk on or touch on is our code of conduct before we keep going. So it's a lot of legalese. It looks real scary. I can guarantee you it's not because I wrote it. Basically, what it boils down to is just don't be a jerk. Okay, operate from a place of kindness and respect, and it's pretty hard to go wrong from there. If you want questions, or sorry, if you have questions or you want more details on this, just DM me. I'm happy to help you out there. All right, now we are here today, obviously, to discuss Gainsight with a couple of their fabulous employees. Now, in case you're not aware of who Gainsight is a venture-backed, fast-growing tech company revolutionizing customer success for businesses. Now, the customer success company helps businesses grow faster by reducing churn, increasing upsell, as well as driving customer advocacy. Gainsight provides a complete end-to-end customer success solution through its services and technology. Now, their industry-leading platform helps companies to manage customer relationships effectively, track customer health, and transform the way organizations orient around the customer. Gainsight is the platform of choice for many leading companies like Box, Adobe, and Workday. Now, obviously, we're going to learn a little bit more about Gainsight over the course of the coming hour, but I'm very excited to welcome both of our guest speakers. Sorry, y'all. Dorcas is very upset at being left out of this conversation right now. But I want to introduce you to our first speaker from Gainsight. Now, Revathi Menon is the community manager. Revs is driven by a deep desire to create spaces where people feel connected and valued. She passionately does this by shaping spaces of belonging in her role as a community manager at Gainsight. As the co-chair of Gainsight's mental wellness employee resource group, she strives to cultivate an environment of openness and support within the company. Revs finds inspiration in the stories and experiences of those she meets, whether in her professional work or personal pursuits. She's always seeking ways to bring people together. Revs, welcome to the stage. So happy to meet you and get to talk to you today. Is there anything else you would like our audience members to know about you before we dive into questions?
Thanks, Meg. Hi, everyone. So nice to have all of you here with us. So I'm from Bangalore, India, just sharing where I'm from as well. And just another fun fact about me that I thought I could share out. So I adopted a puppy recently. I'm sure a lot of us have been there. So a lot of my time is spent right now, aside from work, that is. I go on lots of walks, a lot of fetch, and a lot of poop bags. So you can imagine how that's going to be like, right? So that's pretty much how my life's turned around this year. And then over to you. Back to you, Meg.
I love this. Well, I can't hear a mention of puppy and not ask what the dog's name is.
Her name is June. She's a golden retriever. She's a handful.
June. Oh my gosh, I love it. Love. Well, I think that's wonderful. And dogs do, I mean, pets in general do wonderful things for our mental health. So I'm very happy for that for you. All right, now joining Revs, we have Seth Wylie, who's the program director for customer success innovation. Now, Seth is always chasing that next aha moment for himself as well as for others. This passion is what led him to his fifth role at Gainsight as program director for customer success innovation, where he is facilitating the organization's integration of AI into day-to-day work. Now, leaning on his blend of analysis, enthusiasm, and creativity, which he's previously applied when leading teams in community, CS operations, support, and services, Seth thrives by bringing people together to imagine and pilot new ways of working. As co-chair of Gainsight's mental wellness employee resource group, he fosters a supportive and open community within the company. Outside of work, he's been singing with a cappella groups continuously since '97 and lives in Boston with his husband and their opinionated beagle, who I know I asked you the beagle's name and now I don't remember anymore. Seth, please tell us your fabulous opinionated beagle's name, as well as anything else you'd like us to know about.
This is going to be good.
Yeah, Raves and I, our dogs are name twins. They're both named June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she'll be she's coming back from her walk probably during this call, which means if you see me open the door and like go like this for a while, it's because she is an opinionated beagle and has strong demands about the time and flavor of the love that she receives. So that's what is happening if that goes on.
Oh, it's the scritch tax. You'll see me do the same thing. If I do one of these, it's usually because I'm like wiggling someone away from cords or absolutely.
Yeah. I provide scritches. My husband provides cheese. That is the parental duties. But in terms of
that's just division of labor. That's just smart.
Exactly. And I mean, smart on her part. She gets what she needs from everyone that she can get it from. And then in terms like just to riff on the acapella group point there, tell you a little bit more about myself. Um, I just came back from a crazy week of work where I actually flew back on Saturday all day from the West Coast. So like take off at 6 a.m., land at 6 p.m. or something. Like there's a Pacific to East Coast time thing going on there. But in any case, then Sunday this weekend, we had an acapella gig at a bar around the corner for like a acapella brunch situation. So my group sang for like an hour or something, and it was all live streamed on Instagram. So if you want to look up Vinyl Street on Instagram, vinyl spelled like a record, there's like a two-parter. There's a two-parter recording there. My solo is at 8 minutes 30 in the first portion.
I'm
So
on it.
not too much of a hard plug, but I guess kind of a hard plug, which is not what I was anticipating going with. But anyways, I had a big weekend, so now I'm like settling into the week still, even though it's still, we've
I'm
only two.
sorry. The website, your picture is on the front. I'm sending this out to everybody right now. You can't tell me there's a link out there. So there you go,
Yeah.
y'all. If you want to see Seth strutting stuff,
Thanks for the research, Meg. I appreciate it.
please. I am nothing if not a researcher. Law school, baby. That's all we do. All right. Okay. Now we burned 11 minutes. Let's get into the kind of meat and potatoes of today's talk. Obviously, we're going to be talking about mental wellness. One of the things that I wanted to make sure we shared with people was kind of what we're bringing to the talk. So as your moderator, I'm very honored to be part of today's discussion. I bring a lot of, alphabet salad diagnoses to the table, but the bigger ones are I live with bipolar disorder type 2. My husband is bipolar 1. I have ADHD, highly recurrent major depressive disorder with schizoaffective features. So much fun. But I am a lifelong proponent of mental health and just, think everybody could do with a little therapy in their lives. I think we could all be better for it. Rebs, do you want to give us a quick primer to your comfort level as well about what brings you to the discussion today?
Yeah, definitely, Meg. So I've come from a place where, so I think for me, generally, like my family has been always like really supportive of everything I do. And I was someone who like went out and beyond to do something different. Like I always felt like the urge to do something different from everyone else in my family. And I went into this world of like, where I was working with like advertising agencies. And there was a good chunk of my years that I spent trying to figure out work-life balance, I'd say. And that took pretty much a good toll on me. Like, I think there were times where, everyone would be celebrating festivals. And in India, festivals are a big, big deal. Like families come together, friends, like neighbors, everyone, right? And there was a point where I was just like sitting at home and working on my laptop, just hearing like fireworks go and like kids laughing and like the bell ringing. And like, I'm not even there to take the sweets in because like I'm still on my laptop. And I remember my partner then, my best friend, was just like, I think you've reached a point where you're not really like present anymore with people. Like you're just acknowledging the presence. There's a party happening, but you're just in your own world. And even if I bring something into a conversation, I would generally just complain, and that was not like, I was like very Grinch to be around. And I kind of started realizing that after a point. And that's when I decided that, I'll take a huge break because overall, just mentally and physically, like physically, I was losing weight. I wasn't eating right. I would eat junk food, like just to like keep myself fueled up, or like heavy coffee shots for that matter. But it reached a point where I was just like, I need to take a break and figure out if I'm really doing something that I love. And if I'm just giving away whatever passion and energy that I have into doing something that's really not reaping fruits for me. And I think I took around 1.5 1 year break completely from my career. And I'm not saying like advertising agencies are bad. Like I genuinely loved what I did, right? Like I was very, very proud of it. But at the backstage, I knew something was going wrong and I just kept pushing it aside, saying it'll get better, and it never did. But I think fast forward 1.5 years, I was hell bent on finding, or at least joining a company where mental health, work-life balance, all of this was primary. And that was one of my, and very, funny enough, Seth was the person who actually interviewed me here for Gainsight. So yeah, I know. I mean, the world is just wonderful, right? That way. So it was just very, I think, eye-opening factor for me because that 1.5 years, I went through multiple illness as well, which just kept recurring. There were like 2 3 months of my time where I couldn't do anything except get out of bed and go get a bath, come back to bed. And it was just taking a toll on everyone around me as well. It was not just me. I could see people not wanting to be around. trying to give their support, but they didn't know how to help. But again, yeah, that kept aside. So fast forward 1.5 years down the lane, there was a part of me still wanting to go back to advertising agencies because I was just like, oh, maybe that's still what I want. Like 1.5 years, yay, I figured it all out. But the other side was just like every time I had an interview with a company, I would just be like, I would ask them like, do I have to work weekends? Do you expect me to stretch till 12 a.m. in the night? Can I take time off to like take a vacation? Do I get guaranteed 12 days off? And everyone was just like, yeah, maybe, we'll see, but there's no guarantee. And I'm just like, oh, like that's the red alarm that you're looking for. And I just sort of just backed out and I was like, okay, I'll wait it out. I'll figure out how it happens. And then boom, Gainsight happened. And I'm very vocal about work-life balance since the break. Like I've always been vocal. Like I make sure I take my break. I have like Friday, no call Fridays so that I can really like recuperate, just figure out the week, get ready for next week. So I feel like that's where my story comes from. Like I truly, truly believe like if you really don't like where you work at, it shows in your health overall. And if you really love it, you're going to wake up really energized to open your laptop or like send a message, check your mail, like you're just there in full energy. And I feel like that right now. Like I'm sure it's still work in progress as well. There are moments where you're just like overwhelmed because of past trauma. But I think we all get over it, with time, with support from each other. And I'm glad to be at this space right now, like just having this conversation openly with everyone.
That's good. And thank you for sharing, because you're right. There's plenty of places and plenty of industries and plenty of spaces I think a lot of us have occupied where having this kind of discussion and being frank without blame or shame or anything else like kind of undercurrent to the discussion is really rare, and in a lot of places does not happen. And I mean, let's like not mince words. You burned out. Like when you can only function to do like the base things that are required to survive as a person on the planet, that's burnout. And that is, it's serious. It's not, it's, I don't know. I think it's one of those terms that I'm glad that more people are using it, but I feel like it's also a little bit becoming watered down. When people hear the word burnout, they don't think, oh, that's it. There's nothing else under that. Burnout is like everything is gone. So I think you're right. I think I'm really glad we're able to have these conversations, because I think you're right. A lot of people don't necessarily know what they're actually facing when they're going through it. Right.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
And I would add also, if Raves, if you hadn't taken that break, I don't think this is a weird thing for me to say, being the one that hired you, but like I don't think you would have gotten the job. And the reason I say that is not because anything about you, but because the job that you came in for and the like the job that has evolved into require so much creativity and ability to be inventive and to not feel like I'm under pressure to deliver the thing, but to be like, what things could we deliver? What could this program look like? How might we, like going back to your bio, like how can I create a space where people are inspired to share? That's not a type of job that is about like buckling down and doing the execution until midnight and then that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
If you were in that headspace, it's not the headspace you needed for the job,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was so fortunate to take that 1.5 year break, because I know a lot of people probably, I mean, I still remember people saying, do you really need this break? Like 1 year feels too long. And I'm just like, but I'm not there yet. Like until you're there, you just don't want to jump in just for the sake of it, because then you're stuck in the same rut of events where you're again trying to figure it out and you just feel like you're not getting anywhere. And it just I mean, for me, always like I believe in like universe aligning and like the stars aligning. And genuinely, I felt like it was the right thing, because I really wanted to be doing experimental things. I wanted to get creative. And none of that could be done at where I was, because there was just a set of daily tasks that you do. And by the time you're done with it, you're so tired, you're exhausted. And I think I got stuck in the whole hustle culture that people talk about, that you have to do
satisfying.
If
If
and I think it works for some people. Well, I think it works for some people. I mean, it's if it works for you, I think it's amazing. But I feel like I realized really well that it's just not for me. And I feel like going back,
I want that fuels, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there was a point where I also said, like, I want to take a moment to like look back and see how much time I spent with my family. At the same time, like, I don't remember a lot of the moments of those years. Like even now, there were moments I think I probably went home. And in India, you generally go home very frequently to see your parents. And I probably went like once in a year, twice in a year, because I just couldn't find time. And I used to go pretty much every month, one weekend. Like it came down completely to like once or twice when my parents were like, what's going on with you? And that's when you start realizing like the value of things around you. And I feel like when you look back, you want to look back and say, like, I loved what I did, but I also remember how much time I spent with my family or friends. And if you're not able to find that balance, I think that's where you start questioning yourself. And you really should. Like, there's nothing wrong with doing that, because you never know where the question leads to, right? Like you could find the right answer.
Yeah, I mean, you
from
could be asking yourself the question and realize, like, no, that's a good amount of time because maybe my family's kind of toxic, and so I need to only go home twice a year
Yeah.
and blah blah. But you're right, like it the creep can be so slow that you don't notice it until it's too late, especially in creative careers or if you feel like you are really connected to the mission of what you're doing. Like I burnt out hard in 2020 while working for Power to Fly because all of this fuels me. This feels good. This feels like I'm doing something and helping people, but it meant that I threw myself into it when I really should have been like, maybe let's take a couple extra minutes here. Maybe let's like do some self-care. Maybe let's ask, have I fed myself today? Not have I made all my accounts happy for the day kind of thing. Seth, how do you feel about this? When you're coming to this discussion, where are you coming from a place of?
Yeah. The um the flavor is it's similar but different. I also hit that burnout point. For me, it was when I was managing the team that I was managing before I was managing the team that Revathi was hired onto. So when I was head of our CS ops team, I had um, a 15-person organization reporting to me. There was like a couple of managers in there, so it wasn't all direct reports. But the issue for me was that I've found that I take an enormous amount of personal responsibility for the success of the people who report to me. There's a sense of if this person isn't being successful, then it's my fault as the manager. And that is a lot of pressure to bring into every single one-on-one, every single email you send, every single project plan you work on. To to take the example of a one-on-one, to step into that and be, this has to be a transformative discussion for the person who I'm meeting with, so that they are inspired in their work and feel a sense of great a sense of great direction and empowerment and all of that packed into like a 30-minute meeting. And to take that on as a personal responsibility, as opposed to allowing the person who reports me to like, have the amount of like the responsibility for their own success, which they naturally should and could, and everyone wants to maintain a certain degree of that too. You don't want to just like wholly lean on your manager to do everything for you. Not that I was doing things for people, but just that sense of responsibility weighed really heavy, which meant that every day was a back-to-back series of meetings. And I just remember saying to my therapist at the time that it felt like when I got on my first meeting of the day, that from there through the whole day, it felt like my like soul energy was being like pulled out through my belly button, just like and then just leaving me like a husk at the end of the day. And I would just like leave this work closet and just go lie down on the couch and like say like to my husband, like say nothing to me for 5 to 10 minutes. And that's again like a different version of the same thing. Like I don't want to live this way. For me, the thing that I really wanted to reorient to, instead of the visiting family or something being the like going home, that is the that wasn't my thing that helped me realize like, ooh, this is what I'm missing, or like hearing the festival outside. It was knowing the degree to which being inventive, and something else Rave said earlier about like doing stuff that other people aren't doing, like that's a North Star for me, to know that I'm investing my time in a way that is very motivating for me.
Mhm.
And so I communicated to my boss and my boss's boss and the CEO, in sort of casual conversations about the kind of work that I wanted to be doing, which was individual contributor work, and senior level individual contributor work, but wanting to do the particular flavor of invention that I was very interested in at the time, and I'm still interested in, which is like, how do you get people together in order to invent things together and be collaborative? And that was something they were able to create a role for me for. And then once I got into that role, um, this is still before the point in time where I brought Raves on. The the It very quickly became apparent that there was a particular project that they had in mind for me to do, which was not the thing I wanted to do. So immediately I had this tension of like, I finally got into this role where I get to be inventive, and I feel like I'm being like handed this very specific thing to do, which is not what I had in mind. So then I was able to go through a process of, wait, what is like really the goal of this thing? Why do you want this to happen? And I was able to find a way to reconcile that with my own vision of what I thought was most important. But just switching into a new job was not enough of the new role was not enough of a not enough of a shift. It still required some like conscious
As you're
husbanding,
describing this,
nurturing. Like,
yeah,
I had to still like keep an eye on it and make it the thing that I wanted it to be. And I've basically been on that journey since.
I like that. And it kind of gives me the vibes of like wherever you go, there you are. It's like kind of when people like, I don't like my life, I'm gonna move. Well, you're still taking yourself with you. So
Hmm.
what of it is the move? What of it is something that needs to happen with you? Because you're right. I mean, it's these are hard. These are hard shifts to make. They're hard things to recognize in ourselves. Like these are big conversations we're having here.
Hmm.
Okay, before we keep going, I do want to put out a poll, well, not a real poll. Sorry, I'll very informal. But I want to encourage everybody that's in the chat right now, head up over into the chat. I want to know what you most hope for from the session today. Do you have a question you're hoping to get answered? Are you looking for specific advice? Are you hoping to hear from somebody else who's done it? What are when you signed up for today's event or when you showed up today, what were you like? I hope I get this. So while people are putting that in the chat, I do also want to remind everybody, if you've got questions you want to send them in the chat. If you have questions you want to be raised, but you want to be kept anonymous, just DM them to me. You can find my name, Meg Alexander, in the dropdown. So please feel free. Let us know what you're hoping to get from today. And if you have any questions, we're happy to get those answered. I also, Seth, I wanted to touch on something else you said before we keep moving, which
Hmm.
was the weight of the expectations that you had. And you knew that what you were expecting of yourself was not, I say this with love, not reasonable, not logical, not, something that's achievable, but
Mm.
also it doesn't stop it from being something that you were doing.
Mm.
I want to highlight for everybody the weight of your own personal expectations. Just because they're not real doesn't make them any lighter or heavier. Like it really, you are compounding these things, right? So I think it's really important to highlight that like the weight of your own expectations can be even heavier than everything else that everybody else is putting on you. And the distinction of knowing that it's not something coming from external does not generally help for most of us. Would you say that's true?
Well, I think there are sort of three flavors of expectations. There's the uh, there's the explicitly external expectations, like you must complete this thing. Oop, thumbs up. You must complete a thing by a certain time. There's also the um, on the other end of the spectrum, there's the expectations that you set for yourself. Like I set myself the expectation of wanting to be in a role where I was able to feel creative and inventive all the time. That was
Mm-hmm.
an internal expectation and one that feels very like close to my heart and something I'm maintaining. And then there's the ones that are the external, the perceived expectations externally that um, you have internalized and are holding on to, and that's the category that the like as the manager you were supposed to be that you were supposed to be this way, and those are some of the hardest to see that they're not real because honestly that perspective about wait a minute, I'm taking on too much responsibility, that didn't occur to me until months after I left that role. Like, and I imagine, like, Rave, similarly, like, you knew that you needed to tap out, but you didn't know what to, I imagine you didn't quite know what to, like, replace that sense
Yeah.
of I'm supposed to be doing all these things with. And there's
Yeah.
just, when you're in the thick of it, any flavor of burnout, um, it's really hard to get that.
Well, it changes
Um,
how your mind works. You
yes.
literally are rewiring how parts of your brain work. And you are, when they say burnout, picture it like this. You are burning out the connections that go between the things. So I call it like ADHD glitch sometimes where like I need to do three things. I can't remember the steps needed. And it's like my programming just doesn't work. I know how to do the things. I'm a computer. I have the hardware, but I can't do the thing. And I
Hmm.
think that that's really important to highlight is that like when we're talking about burnout, you're burning away the connections of how you do the thing. So you are reinventing the wheel every time you try and do a new task.
Mm.
It's miserable. It's ugh.
And I think that the like the ebb and flow is so important here. You need to have those times in your life that are generally not, for me, it's generally not the weekend, because the weekend is when I'm just like trying to get my brain out of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
work mode, like make the most of the day, and then like it's just make the most of the weekend day. So that doesn't give me the chance to have the breath and space that I need in order to have this perspective. June is back. Hello, girl.
Yay,
Hey,
Um,
June!
June.
so there's something about, I think, in every day needing to have that kind of ebb and flow of the moments where the foot is off the gas.
Mhm.
Rafe, I'm curious for your perspective about how where you find the sort of mental space to have that perspective on the expectations that you are trying to live up to, or the pressures that you feel.
I feel like, I mean, again, it's like a disclaimer, right? Like it's still a work in progress. I wouldn't say like I'm still there yet. I mean, I think every time I look back at what probably happened and what I'm doing right now, there are still parts of it that still remains in the work I do. Like, for example, I mean, it's a very simple expectation that no one's put on me, but I have for myself is to turn up on time. And I'm not talking about just being punctual. Like for me, it's about clocking in certain hours at work, which no one's asked me to do, but it's just part of my system. It's been part of my system for so long that I'm just expecting myself to do it. And I have to constantly remind myself that it's not just the hours you put in, but the work you do within those hours that matters. And to
Mhm.
look back and be like, oh, I've been productive, or I've not done anything, or I've taken some time in between to, like, I don't know, take a power nap or like go for a walk. But it's very weird to look back and just be like, okay, so I know that that one particular part about time has gone into different parts of my life. Like, I'm not even kidding. I turn up at the airport 4 hours before a flight even takes off. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Like, I exist. I
I
do
can
this,
feel how much you're
right?
not kidding.
Like, I mean, I've tried. There are times I've even booked cabs really late. And some, because I know they're going to take this much time. And for some reason, I still end up reaching there early. And it's just passed on to my family members as well. So if they're traveling with me, they have their bags packed really early so that we can reach there very, very early and do nothing. Like we just sit around and like maybe we do talk. Like that's a good thing that comes out of it. But all I'm trying to say is like certain aspects of like expectations that you put on yourself so, it has nothing to do with people around you, but you somehow like it starts leaking into different aspects of your life and you don't realize it. But now I do, right? Like, because people point it out to me. They're like, why are you here 4 hours earlier? Like, you can't even check in. You're just sitting at the gate. You can't even like get your boarding pass. Like, I know it, but I'm still there. Like, that's the thing. Like, you just can't get over it. Like, now I'm obviously learning and I'm trying to get out of it. The biggest thing I've done is I asked my partner to book the cab so I don't have to worry about it. And if it gets late, I blame it on him, right? Like I don't have to worry. So there are parts to it that I feel like has leaked into lives. And I think that's where it gets a little tricky. Like if you notice it early enough, you can avoid it being a habit or like being a part of you. But if you don't, it'll take you time to really get that out of your system and be like, hey, to like point it out and really actually notice it is the first step. But the second step to actually like try and get out of it, you'll have to try different ways to like get it out of your system. One will work, one won't. And
Yeah,
it's very individualistic, right? Which is the beauty of it is also.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, and the same
Yeah,
stuff like doesn't always necessarily
that's
work every time. It's one of those things of like, if the system works for you, it doesn't matter if it sounds kind of silly to everybody else because it works. So
yeah,
let's
yeah.
just enjoy that. You know what I mean? Like I'm also very much in the team of like work smarter, not harder. Don't work against yourself. If you know that like the end of the night, the last thing I want to do is think about laundry. So instead of having a laundry basket where it makes sense, I have a laundry basket that is in the weird part of the floor where my dirty clothes that I throw always end up. It's a weird place for a laundry basket, but they're in a basket. It's not a weird pile on the floor.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, the
That's
system's only weird if you want to make it weird. It's not weird if it works.
yeah.
Yeah. I also, Raves, your point made me think of something else, which is the like when to leave to go out to dinner, or to go to the airport or whatever. The way that typically plays out with my husband is we'll have like the mini conversation about like, oh, should we leave at what, like 4 to go, like drive to dinner or whatever. And I'm like, great. So we'll leave at 4. I'm like, doing my thing, so I'm ready to leave at 4. And then at like 3:45, he's like, actually, I'd like to get a coffee. Like, you ready to go? And I'm like, no, I have 15 more minutes. So so there's something there about like, not just the expectations themselves, but about the sense that there are unstated expectations that will surprise you from people who you care about, whether it's your partner or your boss or your dog or something. There's this like this is like a meta thing. It's like the sense that there are expectations out there and it's your responsibility to like boop, 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 like detect them and not just take them in when you notice them, but be so proactive that you notice them proactively, like that you notice them
Yeah.
ahead of them even being stated. You ask the right question so that you know what they and that is a fearful and anxious way to live. Um,
Yeah, that's a lot
which
of
is part of
work.
what
Like
led me
the
to
fact that
start
when
with
you
my
said it, I feel like already tired at the thought of like trying to do all of that. It feels like such a lot of work. I mean, and also the fact that I think at some point when we have these expectations, like you said, like for example, I think having someone else externally sort of crack that for you helps without your knowledge or with your knowledge, because then you're able to really step back and take a look at what you've been doing. Like, does that make sense? Is that something that you want for the rest of your life? Like, I love being on time, but I need to be wise about for what I'm using it for. Like, I don't need to be at the airport 4 hours earlier, but it's okay to be on time for a meeting, probably, right? So I think that aspect eventually comes to play where you sort of just are like handing off yourself to one of these incidents, saying, okay, for this I'll take it, but for this I don't want to use this. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to be getting anxious about reaching on time at like every single location, at every single opportunity, because that's, like you said, it's very tough, it's very taxing as a human being to do so much when you've got other things as well parallelly happening.
Mhm.
hmm Yeah, it's hard enough to actually do the things, let alone at the same time be freaking out about whether you're doing them well enough and whether there are other things that you could or should be doing that um that you're not. Like that is
You're literally describing my pre-medicated mindset and it's giving me agita right now. Like I'm sitting there, like my ears, my shoulders are creeping closer to my ears of like, and how did I do the thing? Did I do it right? Did I deliver the thing right? Did I say the right thing in that thing? What if I should have done it this way? And what if I did it that way? And oh, I should probably do it that way again. I gotta call my therapist. Like truly, like it's weird, right? How quick it is to get back into that mindset because those expectations, not only are they there, you can find anything you're looking for, right? So there's always a way to add more expectations to your own plate.
Mhm.
Always.
Well, and especially with like grind culture is one part of this, but there are other flavors. There's I've been having conversation with ChatGPT about this and I'm still kind of exploring it, but like I'm I'm tentatively calling it, and I feel like this is the sort of thing where like other people have already called this, but toxic aspirationalism.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
sense of like
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
my responsibility for myself so that I don't lie on my deathbed and with regret to make the most of my life and achieve full self-actualization. So I better like meditate 2 hours a day and I better, eat perfectly and have the job that most nurtures my soul. Like you stack all these things on, and those are like a very strange flavor of like it feels like it's in that middle category of external expectations that I have adopted, but they are expectations only about myself that don't affect anyone else or things they're not I'm not adopting them because of the way they affect someone else. I'm adopting because of the way they affect me or this like
mm-hmm.
future version of me who I imagine like having regret about how he lived his life or something.
Yeah.
And that is um that's another source of just a race with no finish line.
Transcendentalism is what you're describing. It is the effort to consistently be improving yourself in all ways at all times, no matter what. And it sounds lovely in theory until you're like, wait, that's exhausting. But yes, it's that, oh my gosh, it's the I could do it better. The I know what it looked like in my head, and what I'm delivering is not that. So it is automatically less.
hmm
It's toxic. It's terrible.
Or just like I'm not walking through every day feeling like I have transcended reality and am, just like my heart is and like abilities and skills and mind are just shining forth to the world and bathing everyone and in the value of being in my presence and the things that I add to the organization and to my relationships and stuff like maybe that's an absurd goal.
Maybe. All right, so let's go back to the chat here. Sorry, I've got a bunch of people had chimed in about what they were hoping to get from today. A ton of people basically wanted information to help them continue to share mental health and work-life balance with their own teams, something they
Mm.
can use going forward. One question that was really good, this person, Courtney, thank you, Courtney, said, I want some advice. As someone who also works at Gainsight, I just want to hear their perspectives on this topic and how they handle work-life balance, that internal self pressure and the job. So a lot of what we've been talking about so far. Christiane also says on the employment side, breaks in employment are being seen as acceptable, whereas when in the past this was a negative thing. So this is a big win that Kristen is seeing in what we're talking about today. I totally agree with that. A lot of people just talk about how they want to hear what other people's challenges were, how they went through it and got through it. So I think that's really excellent. To get us kind of kicking off in here, let's see. How to create an environment where employees don't feel guilty for prioritizing self-care. So let's talk about this when it comes to each of you, directly, how you've worked on this for yourselves, and then what it means, what it looks like within Gainsight, on the larger scale. Revs, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, I'm talking from in terms of like just me approaching it as a human being before like looking at it from like a Gainsight perspective alone. I think it's also important for us to like, it's easier said than done, again, disclaimer, to like really put boundaries for what you do. And it's very difficult, right? Like it's for you to, I think the biggest aspect is all of us probably struggle at some point is to say no to certain things. And we obviously have learned that over time. But I think having some sort of like a ritual, a habit that you have for yourself to sort of just like cut off from everything, but also like still keep the love that you have for your work ongoing. I think that's something that's worked wonders for me. One thing that I think when I joined Gainsight, I started was having a no calls Friday. That is, I don't take any calls unless it's super, super urgent, like my community is coming down or like there's like a big bug or something like that. I mean, fingers crossed, nothing. But if something like that happens, you'd find me on call. But otherwise, I try not to go on calls on Fridays because I think it's a great way to just wind down. It's also a great way to plan ahead for the week, right? So you're not coming in on a Monday worrying about what you're going to do because you already have planned it on Friday, and your Saturday you can go to sleep not having running thoughts in your head. At least it's worked for me. And I feel like having those small habits and rituals that sort of just helps you realize that helps you realize to keep going at what you love doing, but at the same time also have those boundaries so you're not getting too attached, but you're also finding time for other things in your life. I think that's where the tricky part is, that you'll always continue to learn, always continue to um model a little bit for yourself. Again, like I said, it's very individualistic. Like what probably works for me might not work for someone else. But I think having some sort of habits and rituals generally helps just put things into perspective in terms of like how you want to continue doing what you're doing at a particular place that you work at.
Yeah, I like that. Francois is chiming in the chat saying that they use gamifying. I am a big
Oh, I love
fan of
that.
gamification.
Oh, I love
I
that.
try
The
and
community manager in me is just like beaming at that thought.
Yeah, give yourself points and badges. Yeah.
Yeah. I love.
And
let's see here.
well, and let me riff on that because Raves,
Please
the
do.
something you said there, again, this is my brain is always doing, taking it to the meta level. Um, there's something inherent in what you're describing, which is truly taking ownership of what you want your schedule to look like. I
Yeah.
think that this part of this expectations thing that you expect that your goal stepping into a company is to adapt to their way of working, to adapt to your manager's way of working, to it like that your company will somehow provide you the schedule or the cadence to your life that is a healthy, good cadence for what, like all people or something, but actually taking responsibility and designing
Mhm.
what your schedule and cadence of work needs to look like for you with your particular mix of craziness that's in the black box of your head to be successful in the type of work you're doing. Um, no one can no one can do that for you, and it's really even
Yeah.
hard to do for yourself. You need to
Yes.
experimentation in order to find it. And it reminds me of this concept uh, uh, that is I'll mention the book in a second, but it's the concept of being a day artist, like being an artist in your approach to how you design your day. Like
Oh, I love that.
like
I
bringing
love
your
the way.
creativity not just to your work, but all of us
Yeah.
have a day that we are living. How are you bringing your inventiveness and creativity and innovation and experimentation and so on to how you construct your day? And this is actually this is something I picked up from a book that I would recommend to anyone who feels like they're struggling from expectations, which is I Didn't Do the Thing Today by Madeline Dorr. Also, if you have Spotify paid, I think it's just on the paid version, you get like 8 hours free a month of audiobooks, so you can get it there and like listen to it like on a dog walk or what have you. Um, but it's a great book for sort of breaking this sense of my value isn't how many things I do, and changing it to at least simply cracking that. It doesn't matter what takes its place, but
Yeah.
just cracking that sense of my value is in the things I do. And it's like my prediction is that for most people, if you break that, your shift is towards my value is in the perspective that I bring. And if you see if the perspective as the useful thing, that's like a, ooh, oh, then that means I should be nurturing myself in a very different way. I should be bringing myself forward in a different way. I should be taking the breaks I need so my perspective has the ability to come out. Like there's some parts of any work, any job that are going to be more about execution, but you were you were probably I my hope for everyone is that you're not hired to be a cog in the wheel. You're hired because of the perspective that you bring to the job and your ability to be inventive in the moment and adapt to the problems of the day and so on, as opposed to needing someone else to tell you how to adapt. And so that adaptation happens because you are inventing on the fly. You are using your creativity, you're using your perspective to say, what is the right thing to do here, based on my experience and my values and what I think is most important and meaningful and so on. So how do you become an artist with your day and your week to construct that day and a week in a way that allows your perspective to be even noticeable to you underneath all of this like expectation running around and the natural sort of you know, bumps and bruises of day-to-day life that's just being a human.
Oh,
I like
absolutely.
how you put that. Sorry, man, go ahead, go
No,
ahead.
no, please. No, I'm
Now, I was
I'm
just
I'm
saying, I
checking out
like
the
how you put
comments.
about the whole artist angle of it, because I think that really describes how we're all very individualistic in our ways. And we're all like artists in our ways, to like put it lightly, right? Like we all plan our days differently, we all handle calls differently, we all plan our vacations differently. Like there's so many beautiful ways to look at it. Like I just feel like that's such a nice takeaway from this because Seth, like I have this habit of like Seth says these really nice stuff. So I try to like note these. I have like a small note on my phone where I can take a note of all these small things that probably can become bigger conversations and just to like a refresh look at it. But I feel like I mean, I'm just curious as well, right? Like Meg, even with you, like how would you suggest, say, if we are all artists in our own way, I'm sure there's some point where we're all like crossing lanes.
Mhm.
Say, for example, I'm someone who loves planning my daily tasks, and I've gone through so many versions and softwares. And the one thing that really worked for me out of everything was Monday. Like, I never thought Monday would work for me because I was
Mhm.
just like, oh my gosh, this looks very overwhelming. Like, for someone like who likes to see a clean chart in front of me, it was just overwhelming. And then I started using Kanban on Monday, and that was just game changer for me. Like, it was just one of the things that helped me plan my day. So I'm just
Mhm.
wondering, like, when do we? I feel like I don't know. Maybe it's a question to myself and to everyone, just to like think loudly, right? Like, where do we know where we are crossing paths to just like really say, like, share it with each other, but also be like trusting of the fact that maybe we should try it without spending too much energy on trying something new, but
Mhm.
also like, maybe take a bit of the artist in each other, into each of our own lives.
Yeah,
Can I
no, I think that's
Sorry.
wonderful. I completely agree with this. For me, the system is whatever's working at the time because I have bipolar disorder, so does my husband. There are things that like there are certain systems that we kind of need to have in place. If I run out of something in the fridge and I don't immediately put it on the board, the right on wipe off board that is next to the fridge, we're not going to end up getting that same thing from the grocery list next week. It's just not going to happen. But something like we've done like a family calendar and it has looked like the calendar app in our phones that we share on the same thing. We have done the like huge cardboard calendar that we hold like family meeting. We call it a staff meeting, even though there's two of us and two dogs. But so like these things have changed, right? And the system does not always work and the system breaks down. But the whole point is we're trying to have a system. So for me, what worked for me was letting go of finding the perfect one and being like, okay, this one has worked for the last 2 months. We had a breakdown in October. It's not working. So we're going to do it as something else for November. So
Right.
for me,
Okay.
it's the system is the flexibility.
Yeah.
That's where the art is like, okay, what's working this month? What's not? Seth, how do you do this?
One thing I want to call out from what you just said there, Meg, is what's important for it sounds like you and your staff, is agility.
Yeah.
Like it's not about like finding the one thing that's the perfect thing for, for
Flexibility and
you.
resiliency.
Flexibility. Yeah. And resiliency is not just about like having a system where you never stumble,
No,
but
no,
it's
it's the
about
we
like,
stumbled and we're going to try it again.
exactly. And so there's something there about, this is another expectations thing that maybe is just a me thing, but this sense of like, if you're doing life right, nothing is messy.
Yeah.
Um,
Or the mess doesn't bother you quite as much because you're not comparing the messy life versus the centerfold of like, Architectural Digest.
mhm.
You're actually living in the room as opposed to trying to live in a magazine spread.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's this like, this like, what's your relationship with mess? What's your relationship with the situations where you need to be agile? So there's a thing there. Something else that comes to mind, a couple other things come to mind. Raves, I wanted to double click on a phrase you said, which is think loudly. I love that. Like expose your thinking to people because
Mhm.
oftentimes this whole conversation is stuff that's kind of running in the background for people to some degree. They're like, am I burned out or not? But you don't have the space to talk about it unless you like have a employee resource group like we do, where we try to create the space for these conversations. But it's not like 150 people show up every day. So, anyways, the way to have these conversations is to be just vulnerable enough to share some thinking or something you're trying, because that's likely going to make someone else say like, "Oh, that's interesting. I was thinking about this. I was doing that." So, and that person doesn't need to be a manager. Doesn't need to be a group of 50 people. Even just having that conversation with one person is a great step in the right direction, and doesn't need to be a big conversation. The other thing that
Well,
comes to
it goes
mind,
to your point from earlier. It goes to your point of like when there are these expectations, what are they and where are they actually coming from? Right? It dives in perfectly to that point of like, okay, where are we getting this from? Because if we even just peel back that layer, then we realize, oh, I thought they were coming from there. No, actually, that's an expectation that's coming from this place. And so that's how we fight that or fix it or fill that need or whatever it is. Like
Mhm.
I think you're right. It all comes back to peeling back that top layer and saying, hey, here's what my work looks like. What does your work look like?
Yeah. Or how do you approach it? Like maybe you use something different than Monday, which Raves use, but like that just opens the chance for a conversation to be like, what does it look like? Like what does organization look like for you? So much of this is in the power of the follow-up question. So there's
Yeah.
a whole thing there. Another thing that comes to mind is uh Raves, you nodded at this too, but like giving things a try. Oftentimes if I say like I'm gonna do this thing, there's some part of me that's like, if I do this thing, then I am adopting it for forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work for me, then I've made a wrong choice, and am like, I was not perceptive enough or thoughtful enough, as opposed to saying, let's try this for a month. You, to the gamification point, you could set yourself a specific time where it's like at the end of, November, I'm going to take a look and see like, is this working for me? What do I need to change? Because that can be so freeing, I think, to just be liberty to try things.
We do this in my marriage. It's called love this idea for, and it's usually like love this idea for the next 5 minutes. It's like you don't have to love that I want to put a life-size dinosaur statue in the backyard. Just love it for the next 5 minutes. Hear me out. Walk through this with me, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been everything from love this for the next 5 minutes to love this for the next week. I'm rearranging the kitchen. I don't think you're going to like it, but I need to live in it for a week. So love this for a week. And then we will absolutely talk about whether this needs to change or whatever. But
Okay.
it's that like, that's what we call it. Love this for fill in the blank time.
That's a really interesting approach to helping someone else manage their expectation engine.
Yeah.
You say, this 30-foot dinosaur is awesome. Then if I said that kind of thing to my husband, he'd be like, I have to
Oh, and
shut
mine
this
would
down
immediately
now.
go, no, and here's why. And they're valid no's. Don't get me wrong. Okay. Do we have
Yeah.
room for it? No. Can it get through the house? No. Would it bring me untold amounts of joy in my life? Yes.
Yeah.
But we're adults. So we
I
have
love
Yeah.
this idea. I love this.
yeah,
I'm taking this back. I think I
please
need this.
do.
Yeah, I love
All
this.
right.
I feel like
Okay.
Seth said, the expectation from the other side as well is set, and that
Mhm.
just brings an easier balance of conversation there, rather than just like throwing it in there and just be like, okay, deal with it for the next week.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's
yeah,
it's setting up that idea, and plus you're giving people you're letting everyone know, A, we're testing this. B, no one's married to this idea. see
Yeah.
if this goes wrong, it's fine because we knew we were testing it. That for me, that's why the system thing being flexible and like, okay, we'll try this. Like I've used Dailyo as like my calendar and mood tracker because for bipolar people, for me, mood and energy are not the same thing. So I track those two things concurrently, but like with different metrics basically. So like Dailyo worked for me for the better part of 18 months. It was great. And then one day it just didn't slap anymore. I don't know what happened. It just didn't. I haven't used it in 6 months. I'm tracking differently. I don't like how I'm doing it, but you know, this is a marathon, not a sprint. This is something I'm probably going to end up doing my entire life. So I have to be able to give myself grace, which took a lot of therapy to do, of like, it's okay that this doesn't work because the idea that I'm going to find the thing tomorrow that will be good for the rest of my life is so unlikely that I'm okay completely making that like not an option. It's all right. It doesn't have to last forever. All right.
Yep.
I've talked way too much today. We have 4 minutes left. In the 4 minutes that we have left, first off, I want to do this again, like hopefully as soon as possible. But one of the things that I want to ask that a lot of people were asking in the chat is how do you know when it's time to say something? When, you know, you might need a break, you might be coming close to burnout, you think that you're, you know, gonna burn out, even on just like a specific project. How do you know when it's time? Revs, how did you know?
Think, I mean, even for me, what works now is I have racing thoughts in my head. Generally, if something gets too much, like I probably won't sleep well as well. Like I'd probably wake up at like 3 a.m. and like I want to immediately find a solution to it. And that just puts you at a place where you're constantly like thinking of solutions and seeing, do I implement it right now? You don't need to. Like you probably have to do it 2 weeks from now, but your brain's just constantly telling you, do it right now, do it right now. And that just puts me at a place where I'm obviously uncomfortable, but also like I think I've realized now that that's that one alarm that my mind raises saying, hey, you're raising way ahead of the required time, like slow down or actually sit down and plan it, like put pen to paper and just plan what you have in your head. Just put it so that you know what you're seeing, but don't let it run in your head. So I usually have like a notebook around or a planner where I just like the minute I feel like I need to write, I start writing. Like, and it sometimes doesn't make sense. The next day I look back and I'm like, what have I written? But it's fine. Like it's out of my system. I got a good sleep. And that's
I do
what
that
matters.
too. Yeah. Even if it makes no sense, even if it's just half scrambled, whatever, like that completely works for me. Seth, how about you? What is the thing like? Do you have a mechanism to know like when you might be getting to a certain level of stress? Like what does this conversation sound like in your head?
Yeah, there are two things that are the biggest signals, and both of them about trying to live up to some flavor of expectation that's bouncing around in my head. One of them is the can't sleep, wake up at 3 a.m., like brain is zipping around about how do I solve this problem. Usually when I actually wake up in the morning, I'm like, what was I even thinking about? This is like crazy pants, makes no sense. But I spent like 90 minutes in the middle of the night, like noodling on it because my brain is like, things will be okay if you solve the problem. And then you will be amazing and self-actualizing and whatever. So there's that. The other thing is finding myself checking my Slack all the time. Because
Yeah.
if I'm like worried about am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? Then one thing that feels within reach, where at least I can be like up to speed on communications. So I just
Mhm.
like keep going to Slack, keep going to email, and so that's a signal. I also wanted to share a few like takeaways on this question from a old conversation we'd had in Slack with our employee resource group that sort of boiled down to 4 signs of burnout themes that people were reporting. One is this like your brain can't turn off from work mode. That looks differently from different people. Thumbs up again. But you're stuck in this work mode. Number two, you find times where you're just completely tapped in terms of your energy, or maybe you notice it through your patience and like anger is coming up a lot or something. So there's that. Number three, that life is about work instead of work being a thing that's part of life. Again, that can look differently. And fourth and finally, a sense of hopelessness like
Mhm.
I'm never going to get out of this. And then
The treadmill idea.
yeah, and then the three quick sort of burnout busting tips that the group came up with, and the themes were um, uh, give up on the existing to-do list because it's not working for you. Like do a to-do list reset. Number two, put reasonable boundaries on what the things are that are taxing you, whether it's Slack or the one-on-ones I had with my team or so on. And then lastly, activate your helper squad. That could be your manager, it could be your therapist, it could be friends, but like go to them and say, I need help. Even if you go to them and say, I need help and I don't know what to ask for, can you like ask me some questions so to help me identify what help I need? Um, but I wanted to drop that little knowledge bomb at the end of this call.
I started thinking of mine as my pit crew because race cars perform at a very high level, but they are literally supposed to have to visit the pit. Like it's something you have to do. And if you don't for any reason, they're still going to make you go every so many laps. So for me, thinking of them as a pit crew made it way easier for me to think of myself as less of a burden and way easier for me to see this as a natural mechanism that I am supposed to lean on people because this is what their job is. So how dare I not let them do their job when me being somebody else's pit crew makes me so happy.
Yeah.
So that might help for people. Okay. All right. We have burned through all of our time, but I want to say a massive thank you, Revs and Seth. Thank you to both of you for taking your time out of your day to be here with us. Thank you for all the prep work that went in on this. We are massively, massively thankful, as well as to Gainsight for loaning you the both of us for the morning. Revs, thank you for adjusting the time of your day. Revs is ending her day with us today. But thank you both so much. This has been really wonderful. We honestly need to do another one of these for sure. But thank you both so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much, Meg. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, I'm glad I'm ending the day like this. So that feels good.
Ugh. All right. Now, last but not least, y'all, I want to say a big thank you to my audience today. Okay. Obviously, I love that you come to events like this because it means I have a job. However, I love that you come to events like this even more because you just took 60 minutes out of your day to do something positive for yourself and your your mental health. And that is not an easy thing in this day and age. So whether you are a little treat person or not, listen to Meg. Okay. Give yourself the pat on the back, the the little treat, the Starbucks, the cookie, the gold star, whatever it is that's your thing that makes the hellscape of reality bearable for you. Please do the thing. All right. I want to say a massive thank you to everybody that asked questions, that participated in the chat. Y'all, these events are way more impactful because you all participate. So thank you so much to everybody who joined us. I hope that y'all enjoyed today's event. And if you are interested in more events like this, definitely take a look at our upcoming schedule. We've got some more great chats happening next week and into November as well. So that's going to be it for us today. So I hope that y'all go out and have the day that you deserve. And I hope that we'll see you back here soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, folks.